In this video, we're going to calculate how much a player's quirks are worth. And you can see Freddie Freeman, he has 9 active quirks. That's quite a lot of quirks. Now, you might be wondering, how much do these quirks affect Freddie Freeman's performance? How much does it affect his PCI? How much does it affect his attribute numbers? And we're going to find out the answer to all those questions in this video. I will show you the calculations and how I determined how much all of these quirks are worth. We're going to go through each one. Most of these quirks affect the contact numbers, but some do affect the power numbers. We will go through that. But first of all, I want to establish that it is possible for a player to go above 125 contact. It's not capped at 125 like it is with the parallel system. If you get 125 contact and then you parallel a player up one level, it still stays at 125 because it's capped. I want to know, do quirks cap off at 125? For example, Freddie Freeman, if he has a quirk active and he's facing a right-handed pitcher, will his contact go over 125? And I determined at the end of my last video, yes, it will go over 125. You basically have outlier contact with Freddie Freeman and other players who have quirks and who have high contact numbers. This is huge because contact is probably the most important attribute in the game this year, more than power. Power in 2020 version of the game was the most important attribute, but contact is more important this year. I think that's been clear to most people who play the game, at least somewhat. So let's just start off with proving that it does go above 125. So as I showed at the end of my last video, this is a screenshot of Freddie Freeman. He is in a 0-1 count. So his first pitch hitter quirk is not active. Now this is a PCI of 125. So if his PCI is in fact capped at 125, his PCI should never be bigger than this. So if I check to see, was his PCI bigger when he had an 0-0 count because he has a first pitch hitter quirk? If it increases, then we know his PCI can go above 125. So let's check that. And we can see it's just slightly bigger. Let's go back. 0-1, slightly smaller. 0-0, slightly bigger. Now that's small. It's a small difference, but there was a difference. You can see it's closer to the white line here. Let's go back to 0-1. A little bit further from the white line. 0-0, a little bit closer to the white line. So it does increase. This is more than 125. But how much is this above 125? How are we going to measure this distance to find out how much the first pitch quirk impacts a player's PCI size? We can see the size difference, but we want to find out the point difference. So to do that, I'm going to show you right now. We know this is 125. I want to use Freddie Freeman again. And we're going to use Freddie Freeman versus a lefty, because we know that his contact versus a lefty is 110, at least when he's parallel 2'd, which I have him parallel 2'd on here. This is a 110 contact versus Trevor Rogers, a lefty, versus Zach Wheeler, 125 contact versus Zach Wheeler, a righty. And I made the effort to make sure both pitchers, lefty and righty, had the same exact attributes. Zach Wheeler has 83 hits per 9, 70 Ks per 9, and Tyler Rogers has 83 hits per 9, 70 Ks per 9. So this should be a good representative sample. Freddie Freeman's contact against lefties is 110. His contact against righties is 125. So the difference between here and here is 15 contact attribute points. So how are we going to measure this? How many pixels is that? Let's find out. So let's start drawing a line. I want to draw a line that touches the insidemost part of this yellow PCI. So that's touching the innermost part of the PCI. I want to see, so that's going over. You can see the yellow, so that's too far. I want us to touch and cover the innermost part of this yellow PCI on the 110 contact he has against lefties. So let's recreate this same exact line on the other screenshot. So I'm going to drag it to approximately where it was. And no, I'm going to be precise, don't worry. So this is approximately where it was, but let's find out exactly where it was. So here, we can go over here to the X and Y axis. This line is at 323X, 203Y. So let's type that in here. 323. Actually, the Y doesn't really matter, honestly, because that's up and down. The only thing that matters is left to right. So actually, I'm just going to do the X one. So this is 323, and this is 323. So that's exactly the same spot. Now I want this line on his screenshot against righties to just touch the inside of this yellow without leaving any gap and without going over either. Just touching it. I want to see, does this just, I'm just going to press the arrow key just to move it over 1 pixel. And I'm going to zoom in actually. And I can start to see the part here. And it's like partly yellow, but like fading out a little bit. I'll move it over 1 more just to see what it looks like. And then fade it out. Okay, yeah, when we fade it out, we can see there's space here. So we don't want that. We don't want any space. So I think the best, and I think there's space right here too. I don't want that. Move it over 1 more. So this is perfect. It's at 323, and it's just barely touching the innermost part of the PCI for his 125 contact attribute. And then here, against the lefty, it's completely covering but not going over the innermost part of the 110 contact attribute PCI. So this is exactly the same spot in both pictures, at least on the x-axis. So let's zoom in to figure out how many pixels wide is this line that I created. Count them up. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pixels wide. So the distance between a 110 PCI and a 125 PCI is 5 pixels. It's also 15 contact attribute points. So every pixel corresponds with 3 contact attribute points, the distance of each pixel. So knowing that, we can compare other screenshot differences. For example, when Freddie Freeman has 1 strike versus 0-0 count, measure the amount of pixels and multiply that by 3 to figure out how many contact attribute points were added to a person's PCI when that first pitch quirk was active. So let's go over to try that. So let's zoom out of this because we're going to still use this. I'm going to hide this bar. So let's find Freddie Freeman in the same situation. We're going to start with a first pitch hitter quirk. We're going to find out what the distance is in pixels and then multiply that by 3 to figure out how many contact attribute points are added when that first pitch quirk is active. So this is Freddie Freeman with an 0-1 count. This is Freddie Freeman in the same situation with an 0-0 count. So again, let's make a line here. This is going to be a thinner line because it's not a 15-point difference, but it's not 0 either. There is a difference. I want to see how many. That's 1 pixel. Let's make this black. Okay, so it's not in the right spot. It needs to be right here, or let's see. Let's zoom out so we can see a little better. For some reason zooming out is better. Okay, yeah, it needs to be here. Let me drag this line over to the screenshot where Freddie Freeman had an 0-0 count, and the x-axis is 323. The y-axis doesn't matter. So this would be touching the innermost part. I want it to touch but not go over the yellow line. So let's just zoom in a little bit. It looks like it's not touching it yet, almost touching it. So it's a little bit, you can see the grass coming in here a little bit. So I think it needs to be one more pixel wider. So let's move the original one over 1 pixel. Okay. And let's move this one on the 00 count over 1 pixel, or expand it 1 pixel to cover this little area here. Like Bob Ross over here. So it's exactly the same spot. So this black line is the distance between this PCI and this PCI. And this black line is 2 pixels. And as we determined before, each pixel represents 3 contact attribute points. So the distance between these two PCIs is 6 contact attribute points. So when you have the first pitch quirk active, you gain 6 contact attribute points. That's a lot of points. And by the way, I'm going to guess it's actually 5 because we're dealing with these pixels and we can't reduce the size any lower than 1 pixel. This is the lowest you can possibly go in Photoshop. If we could go lower, reduce it even more, I bet you it would be 5, because I'm just because I'm looking here, when I move it over 1, it's still like a little bit yellow. You can see the background, but it's like fading a little bit. So I think this is like overlapping just a touch. And that's why I don't think it's 6. I think it's like 5. And I think it's 5 because it's more of a round number that the developers of the game would use. But anyway, so we have determined that this first pitch quirk adds 5 contact attribute points to the PCI. So that's the first pitch hitter quirk. Let's go on to a different quirk, just because we want to test them all. So this is Trey Turner away. Trey Turner has the Road Warrior quirk, so he's going to be better away. Now let's go to Trey Turner home. He doesn't have any quirks active because it's 1-0. Nobody on base. Now let's just do a eyeball test to see. He should have a bigger PCI away because he has the Road Warrior quirk. So he does. You can see it's different. I'm sorry that the screen changes a little bit because it's not exactly aligned. But look at this distance between the white and the yellow. This is away. It should get bigger. And this is home. It definitely got bigger, the distance. And so let's check out the away. Should be a bigger PCI. And it is a bigger PCI. Definitely you can tell. So how big of a difference is this? Let's measure. So let's start with the smaller one. Trey Turner home. Let's do the same test. Probably going to be, I'm just going to guess it's going to be 2 pixels. So I'll start with 2 pixels. That's 2 pixels. Green does not show up as well as black. I don't know why it's not showing up as well, but we can see this is 2 pixels because that's 1 pixel and that's half as long as this black line. So that's 2 pixels. So let's do the same thing. Let's start it right at the beginning here. That's about right. Yeah, that's just about right. This is 324 on the x-axis. Let's move this over to Trey Turner away. And remember, 324 is where we want to put it. 328. No, let's go to 324. The y-axis doesn't matter. That's just up and down. We're measuring side to side. Let's see, is this touching the innermost portion? Yes, it is touching the innermost portion of this with leaving no gap. So that looks like it's about perfect. If we move it over 1, we moved over 1, we can see the grass here. So that's too far. So that's perfect. So the difference home versus away makes for Trey Turner is he gets 2 more pixels. And we know 2 pixels equals 6 contact attribute points. But as I said earlier, I think it's really 5 because 6 doesn't really make much sense. And we can't really reduce this any more than we are. So I think for the same reasons as I said before, I think it's really 5. So I think that Road Warrior and Homebody increases your PCI 5 contact attribute points. So that's huge. The whole game, you're going to have that attribute no matter what count. Let's check day player versus night player. So this is Trey Turner at night, and this is a day game. I'm going to do the measurements again. So let's start with what should be the smaller one, which is the night game. And it is possible that night doesn't necessarily start at whatever time this was, 7 o'clock. It might start at 8 o'clock. But I would assume it starts at 7 because this is the latest you can start a game. This is the very first batter of the game. So let's change, but we'll see with this test because it was hard to tell with the naked eye. So there's some yellow here, so that's not far enough. I think this is 2 pixels wide. Yes, because that's 1, and then this is double the size of 1. So go back out. This is at 325 on the x-axis. Let's drag this over to the same exact situation but day. Remember, it's 325. That's 326, so let's go 325. So this is where exactly the same spot. I want to see if I move it over one to the right, will we see grass? It does start to fade a little bit. But let's just zoom out to see if that makes it more clear. I mean, it does look like there's a little bit of earth, but if I was to guess, I would say this is like a 4. Or you could potentially say it's 3. I think that's plausible as well. But let's go on to the next one. Let's go on to 2 strikes. So this is Trey Turner with 2 strikes, nobody on base. Trey Turner with 1 ball, no strikes. Let's zoom out a little bit. So let's draw a line on the smaller one when he doesn't have unfazed. Excels when hitting with 2 strikes, attribute active. Make sure that's 2 and not 3. That is 2 because that's 1, 2, that's 2. You can see yellow. So this is the perfect spot. We want to completely covering it. 324. Go over to the same situation but with 2 strikes. Okay, so now you can even see some space here. This looks like a bigger one than all the other examples we've shown because it looks like it's starting to fade a little bit. So I would even say this is potentially like 7. This looks like 2 pixels at least plus a little bit more because it's starting to fade. Anyway, so that's that one. So let's go on to Rally Monkey. This is Trey Turner when his team's losing 4-2, 3rd inning, 0-0 count, nobody on base. He has no quirks active here except for Rally Monkey. Check him out in the same situation. Nobody on base, but the game's tied. And he has no quirks active at all. So Rally Monkey should be a little bit bigger. Let's do the eye test. So this is no Rally Monkey. This is Rally Monkey. I think there's a little bit of difference. So let's start with here when Rally Monkey is not active. Yeah, that's 2 because that's 1 and that's 1, 2. So yeah. All right. I can see the yellow. I don't want that. So I want to cover it. Move it over 1. Perfect. 324. Let's move this over to the Rally Monkey. 324, remember? That's 325. Let's move it over 324. Exactly right. Let's see. Is this touching but not covering, but not overlapping? Let's move it over 1 to the right just to see. I still see a lot of yellow there. Change this to 1 pixel. See what that looks like. That's 325 now. Let's change this to 1 pixel. See if that looks better. That looks better to me, honestly. It looks like the difference is 1 pixel, honestly. Zoom out. This is 0-0 score. And this is teams losing. It looks like it's 1 pixel. So I'm going to say this Rally Monkey only gives you 3. Now let's look at Fighter. Performs better in the 9th inning or later. So this is the 9th inning. Trey Turner off of Cam Bedrosian. Not Steve Bedrosian. Cam Bedrosian. And this is Trey Turner in the 7th inning versus Cam Bedrosian. So this is obviously touching the line. This is not touching the line. So 9th inning is obviously a bigger PCI. Let's just measure this. This is a nicer pixels here. For some reason. Go over 1. That's perfect. Okay. That's perfectly covering and touching the innermost part of the PCI. 7th inning. Let's move this, drag this over. That's 321 on the x-axis. Drag this over to the 9th inning. 321 x-axis. 321. Oh wow, I'm seeing Earth. This looks like a definitely 3 pixels. This 9th inning one is no joke. So let's go back to this one. Let's make this 1 pixel longer, bigger. Yeah, I don't think they're all the same. I started off thinking because I had only measured like 1 or 2 of these before I did this video. I started off thinking they're all going to be 5 because why would they make them different? It's just easier, just make them all 5. I didn't think they'd be different, but I really, it's pretty obvious that some of these are different. So this is 3 pixels, 320. So let's change this 1 more pixel over. 320. So this is exactly covering. That's like perfect. And this is almost touching. I think, look, the 7th inning one, when I move it over, the yellow is fading a little bit. So I can't say that's a solid yellow line, but I think that's the best spot for it. And then here it's also fading a little bit on that side. So I think it evens out. It looks like the fighter attribute gives you 9 contact points. And I'm going to say possibly it gives you 10 because 10 would make more sense. It's a round number and it is a little bit faded here. So I think this is either 9 or 10 contact points. That is huge. And by the way, not just 9th inning or later. And somebody even said that this attribute will be active on Battle Royale and events if it's 3rd inning or later. I can't confirm that. I didn't do that test, so I don't know that, but that's what somebody said. Anyway, at least for the 9th inning, let's try Situational Hitter. So for this one, we're going to go with Fernando Tatis. He has a Situational Hitter Quirk. So in this one, there is nobody on 3rd base, but 1 pitch earlier, 1-0 count, there was a player on 1st base. Let's just do the eye test. So this is with somebody on 3rd. This should get smaller. And it looked like it got significantly smaller. So yeah, that's significantly bigger. So let's check this. And by the way, on this one, he also has this pressure cooker quirk active here. Performs better when there are runners on base. It's 125 clutch for him. So this is going to be clutch combined with situational. This is 2 quirks active. But let's just see how much those 2 quirks. But by the way, this is going to be what it's like in the game, though, because most of these players that have quirks have pressure cooker. But the thing is about pressure cooker, it's not going to be the same for every single player. Because Fernando Tatis has 125 clutch, and some players have 110 or 190, so that's not going to impact the PCI size as much for those players. But for Fernando Tatis, when he has player on 3rd, start with the smaller one. That's perfect. Okay, I think that's too big. I think that's like 6 pixels. That's like 6 pixels. Let's not go crazy here. Let's see. Let's go down to 5. Okay, 5. at 321. Let's go to when he's nobody on base. 321. 321. Actually, I'm sorry, I messed that up. Start with the smaller one. So I'll just use this anyway. Start with the smaller one. Over too far? That's about right here. Okay. 325. So let's just go back to Fernando Tatis. Move this to 325. Okay. Looks like it's too far. Let's see if I can find any yellow underneath that. Yeah, that's too far. So let's go back. It's not 5 pixels wide, it's 4 or less. So that's 4. I changed the x-axis to 326. One, 326, perfect. See, does this? That's about right because I can see some earth right there. So I think it's 4 pixels. This is 4 pixels difference. So this is him, Fernando Tatis, with nobody on base, no quirks active. But when he is a guy on third, it changes his PCI, increases it 12 contact attribute points. So that's combined of situational and pressure cooker together. I guess the best way to measure situational hitter would be to have a guy on first and third, and then have a guy only on first. So let's do that here. Let's check the amount the pressure cooker attribute affects the PCI. We're going to do that with a different screenshot because Jesse Winker also has 125 clutch, and I have a screenshot of Jesse Winker. So in this screenshot, he has a guy on second and first, 1-0 count. In this one, 0-1 count, nobody on base. So let's do the eye test. So check this here. This PCI versus, yeah, it's definitely closer. Winker has 125 clutch, so highest clutch you could have. That's 3. I don't want it to be 3, I want 2. Make sure that's 2. Yeah, that's 2. Okay. 2 pixels. That's definitely needs to move over 1. Alright. I can still see a little yellow, but man. That's just the residue. I'm just gonna leave it here. So 322. So let's drag this over to Winker when he has somebody on base. 322. Perfect. I dropped it right in the right spot. So that looks just about right. There's 1 over is too much earth. That looks just about right. I'm gonna say this is another 6. This clutch. So if this adds 6, Fernando Tatis, in our earlier example, we figured out this was 12. So if 125 clutch adds 6, all we gotta do is subtract, say 12 for clutch and situational hitter, and 6 for just clutch on Jesse Winker. And Fernando Tatis and Jesse Winker have the same exact clutch attribute of 125, so that's going to be the same. So I would say situational hitter is going to be 6, maybe 5 or 6. Situational hitter adds to the contact attribute point total. I think there's one more, the pinch hitter one. Also Jesse Winker. I wrote up here is pinch hitter, so this is pinch hitting. And this is regular at bat. Let's do the eye test. This is regular at bat. It's got a little bit of distance between the white line, and that's almost touching the white line, so definitely a difference. Let's start with the smaller one, non-pinch hitting at bat. Leading off the game, that looked like a big difference. That might be like 3. Expand out. .321. Looks like it's a little yellow's peeking out there. Might just be the residue. I'll just leave it here. A little residue here. 320. This is regular at bat. Let's go to the pinch hitter. $320. Looks like it might not be 3 pixels. I got a little carried away there. Probably 2 pixels. Yeah, it's definitely not 3. So let's go to make this a little smaller. Okay, there's a little residue here. That might account for 1 point. That's my feel of the situation here. Is that? That's 2, right? Yeah, that's 2. Let's see. Go over 1. Dang, is it 1? Does the pinch hitter only add 1? Alright, let's try 1. 322. Pinch hitter at bat. Alright, 322. 322. Let's just zoom out a little bit. This is regular at bat. There is a little yellow showing up here. So, but it is like fading out. And then some fading out on the other side too. So, yeah. So I don't know. I'm going to say this is like a 4. This looks like a 4 or 5. Got a little residue on both sides, even though this is only 1 pixel. It could be like 1 on here. Whoops, wrong one. Could be like 1. This might account for 1, this residue, and then on the other side, like this little fading might account for 1. So this could be 5, and it just had a little fading on both sides. That's my guess, but it could be 4 as well. For Dead Red and Breaking Ball Hitter, I didn't go over because other people have gone over that one, and they noticed the PCI didn't change. They speculated that it didn't change because SDS knows if you saw, for example, Freddie Freeman, and then you saw, okay, the ball's about to come in, and I see his PCI is a little bit bigger, then you would know if he has Dead Red Quirk only, you'd say, okay, this is definitely a fastball. So it might give you an advantage. So they were speculating that this Dead Red Quirk and Breaking Ball Hitter Quirk add to your power, which makes sense. Remember, the finest players, the postseason players, team affinity players like this Jared Walsh card, Tops Now players, monthly award players, and sometimes live series card players have quirks. Most of the other kinds of cards don't have quirks, but these I put together on the screen a lot of cards that have a lot of quirks. So for me, I'm going to be considering Freddie Freeman. Definitely going to play him. Trea Turner, I haven't done great with him because I bat him first. I don't tend to do good the first batter of the game because I'm still like getting used to the speed or that pitcher. So this is not like that fair to him, but he has a ton of quirks. Every quirk that Freddie Freeman has except for first pitch hitter. So you can consider his contact from both sides is basically like almost 135, which is incredible. And then his power still against lefties is 125. And he does have Dead Red and Breaking Ball. So his power really is like 110 against righties, 129 against lefties. So, and his speed is maxed out. So he's like one of the best cards in the game if I can learn to hit with him, because I've never really done good with him. But I'm going to keep using him just because his ceiling is probably higher than pretty much any card. This is a card that I've used that I love, and some people said they don't like him, but Jared Walsh against righties, 125, 124, almost maxed out, but he has Road Warrior, so that's going to give him a 5-point boost, 5 or 6 point boost to the contact half the time, and dead red and breaking ball, so he's going to have a 5-point, I'm going to estimate 5 or 6 point boost to his power on every single pitch, because every pitch is a either fastball or breaking ball. So you can consider this to be like a 128 average and 130 power. Obviously, he's not good against lefties. I would only use him against righties as a pinch hitter or maybe a platoon, but I've done really well with him. 448, 14 home runs, and 58 at bats. It's like a home run every fourth at bat. I really like his swing, so I may platoon him. I'll definitely use him as a pinch hitter at least. Tatis, lots of quirks. Soto, lots of quirks, but he is kind of slow, so I don't think I'll use him. But Chris Taylor, I've done well with. 418, he's got a lot of quirks. Well, just a few actually, but home, night, first pitch, and dead red, plus close to maxed out. Pollock actually has a lot of quirks too, and pinch hitter. Harper, yeah, against righties is going to be really tough because he's got some quirks and he's already maxed out against righties. Devers, good attributes. He's got some quirks. Bogarts, this maybe not a player you would use now because Tatis and Trey Turner are better, but I mean, I did pretty well with them. 378, I guess that's not great, but in the beginning, I think I was over 400 until he got kind of outdated, but he has a lot of quirks. Road Warrior, Day, first pitch, dead red, and fighter. So this might be why he seemed to play above his attributes, because he was probably on outlier contact a lot of his at-bats. So obviously there's more players, but that have quirks, but these are like the best players that I picked just to end the video in. But let me know what you think in the comments. This is all my best analysis. I could be wrong. I think I could be wrong on a point either way on some of these attributes, on some of these quirks, but I think I'm pretty close. I hope this information was helpful. But thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.